Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining, everybody. It has been one hell of a good week between all the bourbons that we found, and both Durrell and I have conquered round one of Matt Madness. So in today's video, we are going to go over two special whiskeys that entered my collection here in the last week. Kelsey is going to talk about how some of the whiskeys on his shelf have changed over the years as they have oxidized more and more, sometimes to benefit, sometimes to detriment. And then we'll wrap up today's video talking about the week one experience of Matt Madness, where I was able to take down Dutch over at Curiosity Public and Sam from Sam's Whiskey Bar. Such an amazing competition, such an amazing night. And I'll give you my thoughts going through that competition and what I learned now for round two. So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. Before we start today's episode, if you haven't signed up for our Patreon or our private Facebook group, links in the description, the time is now. We have been working hard all year to find some of the best single barrels that we can in the country. And on its way very soon are single barrels from Evernorth Spirits, Old Dominick, Bardstown Bourbon Company, and New Holland. For the Evernorth drop, that is going to be 3 different barrels, 2 bourbons and 1 18-year light whiskey. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to only pick the things that we love, and we love sharing it with all of you. So to be sure to sign up now while you still can. Now let's get into today's episode. Let's get into a review and see if this is a bottle that you should be hunting. Thank you for joining for this week's reviews, everybody. I am so excited to do the tasting that we're about to do right now. Currently, I am in Cincinnati, Ohio, a stone throw away from New Riff's distillery. And ever since New Riff came out with their very first release, I have loved what they are doing. But the thing that New Riff actually didn't allow us to do as whiskey fans is to grow up with them. They stuck to the 4-year age statement for an incredibly long time as they worked their way to being able to distribute in all 50 states. Some special releases here or there were maybe 5 years, 6 years old. But when it came to the core bourbon, they just weren't letting us see how that bourbon was maturing with a bit more time in the barrel. And then last year, things changed with the release of the New Riff 8-year bourbon and the New Riff 8-year rye, both of them coming in at 100 proof. I adored both of those releases, and I think the 8-year bourbon is one of the sleepers on the shelf today. But in that review, I even said then, I can't wait to taste this when it gets a little bit older, and I want to taste it at barrel strength. Unknown to me at the time, that is exactly what New Riff had planned for their special spring release. So in May of 2025, New Riff provided the first decade releases of the bourbon and the rye. And what was really surprising is that both releases come in at 120.5 proof. Now that's surprising because most of New Riff single barrels are actually around 110 proof. They have a low entry point in the barrel compared to other distilleries. So the fact that this 10-year release is coming in at 120.5 proof definitely exceeds expectations. So what we're going to do for today's reviews is actually go through the bourbon and go through the rye back to back. Give you the tasting notes for each and the final scores. And for these releases, you are going to want to stick around for the final scores on these. Now, for today's reviews, I am going to use the bulb glasses here, mainly because I really want to get deep into the nose. Thus far, I have only experienced these using a Glencairn, and the nose on the bourbon didn't wow me, but I'm wondering if I can get a little deeper here with today's tasting. But either way, it is always a good sign where this review is going if I am proactively using the bulb glasses. It essentially means I want to get deeper and nerdier as I'm confirming how high this score should be. So we're getting into the 10-year bourbon first, once again, coming in at 120.5 proof. Thank you, New, and cheers, everybody. Let's get into this. Oh man, this is definitely the best this nose has presented to me so far. This glass is amplifying a few things, and it's definitely amplifying the things that I was missing in my last tasting. Flavor notes are coming across much more distinct and with a higher volume, starting with a velvety oak, also a lot of rich chocolate. There is then quite a bit of honey and clove, and then some subtle hints of sweet tea. Now, a lot of these flavors are flavors that I expect from New Riff, but the 10-year oak on this one is really bringing them all together. And I didn't find many single barrels where I was necessarily getting all of those combined, just different aspects at different times. So with the nose presenting itself even better, let's get into the taste. Cheers, everybody. Just an absolutely lovely and rich mouthfeel up front. Those oils slowly work their way across the sides of the tongue, giving different flavors as you just let that little sip sit there on the tongue and work its magic. It comes across a lot sweeter than I initially expected, with the main tasting notes centering around that chocolate and honey. But as you let it sit on your tongue, the clove and the spice begins to work along the sides of your tongue. As it transitions to mid-palate, the chocolate and the honey still take center stage, almost like a honey-infused chocolate bar at some type of artisan chocolate shop. The oak begins letting its presence be known, and there's a little bit of orange that shows up as well, being the main fruit note I'm getting. There could be some berries developing as well as this bottle is opening up, but for now, I'm going to focus on more of the rye and the orange. All right, pretty awesome stuff so far. Let's get into the finish. Right off the bat, the finish lasts a very long time and has a few different waves of flavor to discuss. Initially, still thinking about the orange and that honey-infused chocolate and that oak, but there is a point in the finish where the tune starts to change a little bit. I start getting a little bit of a cherry note, which was a surprise. The rye spice, the pepper, the clove, the barrel char start taking over as that sweetness subsides and it does become spicier. And then I begin to get a little bit of that sweet tea note as well. But then slowly the spice side of it begins to drift away. The sweetness still remains, and it leaves you with a lovely honey and vanilla combo to sit there and chew on for a little bit. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful whiskey from New Riff. This is essentially everything I dreamed that the bourbon could become, and it did become something special. And though New Riff didn't quite let us go each step of the journey, as the distillate got older at 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, instead, we're jumping almost straight to this 10-year mark when it comes to a barrel-proof release. I really think this is going to be a crowd pleaser. It's going to put New Riff back on a bunch of people's radars who maybe have wrote off the New Riff bourbon recently. So here on the channel, we do have a robust scoring system behind the scenes with all of my spreadsheets. But when you aggregate all those scores together, you essentially find if it's just a very nice whiskey, a great whiskey, or you get into certified gold territory when the score becomes above an 86. And this bourbon is actually scoring higher than I thought on initial impression. I thought this was going to come somewhere around an 88, but gosh darn, I really love this thing. I'm scoring it at 90, and it is my new #1 whiskey of the year. So do not sleep on this. I know it sold out rather quickly, but if you have some whiskey friends that can get you a sample, or go over to New Riff and try a sample if you are in the area. But if this is the type of releases that New Riff can give us going forward as their distillate ages, we are in for quite a treat, and a high rye bourbon that I might enjoy even more than my darling MGP. But we're not done yet. We still got to talk about this 10-year rye. So let's see how long that bourbon can hold on to the #1 ranked position. I'm going to take a quick break, but when I get back, we're getting into the rye. All right, and we're back. I know that's like a second in your time, but I got to space my time out between these tastings. But for the next review on today's show, we are getting into the first decade rye whiskey from New Riff. Once again, 10 years old and also 120.5 proof. Now, I think I forgot to mention it off the top, but both the bourbon and the rye were $89.99 at retail. Quite an incredible deal for the things that is in this class. All right, just like the last one, we are going to use a bulb glass again. I am very excited to get a little deeper into this nose and see if there are some more layers to uncover. Man, gorgeous, gorgeous whiskey. Look at that color, everybody. I mean, that is just gorgeous for a 10-year rye. So we are going to get into this nose, then we'll get into the palate, the finish, and the final scores. just like we did the bourbon. Will it score higher? Let's find out. Cheers, everybody. Let's get to the nose first. Oh my God, this nose beats the bourbon, hands down. I love the nose on this rye whiskey. It's probably in top 5 favorite noses amongst rye whiskeys. I've been thinking about that quite a bit lately on what I'm going to put side by side with this particular release. But for me, the oak and fruits just play such a lovely medley. The oak comes across a heck of a lot darker than it does on the bourbon, even though these are the same age. And the fruits lean somewhere between citrus, thinking about things like orange, but then also into some tropical, getting into mango. Slight bit of dark chocolate, so it has that in common with the bourbon, as well as getting those clove notes, honey notes, and a bit of that sweet tea. So that new Riff DNA is still there within this rye whiskey, all melded together and turned up to 11 Spinal Tap style. As I get deeper into the nose here, there's a bit of this effervescence too that really starts coming into play, giving it this levity. Man, I love this nose. Let's see if the palate can match the promise. Cheers. Gosh, it is just incredibly rich up front. Mouthfeel, just like the bourbon, is near perfect. And this blend of oak, chocolate, and mango will just hit you at once and is highly concentrated. As you let it sit, the clove and the spice begins to come through more and more. But even as it gets darker and spicier along the sides of my tongue, I begin getting another note that's a little brighter. It reminds me of the flesh of a fresh coconut. So when it comes to the fruits on this one, I guess I am tropic leaning. All right, let's go for another sip, talk about mid palate. You know, the one thing on this one, it does take its foot off the accelerator a little bit into that transition into the mid palate. A lot of those dark notes subside and it's actually brighter in that transition than it was initially. Focusing again a lot on the fruits, the orange and the mango. The chocolate that is there loses a bit of its sweetness and becomes more of a baker's chocolate. All right. Let's see if it continues to pull its foot off the accelerator into the finish. Cheers, everybody. And no, it does not. Into the finish, it ramps up again, really picking up some volume on the flavors and the intensity of those flavors. It's a nice balance between the sweetness, the spice, and the oak as you get into the finish. The fruits do lean more tropical, especially in the finish. Still thinking about the mango and that flesh of a fresh coconut. Dark chocolate continues, clove continues, a whole lot of rye spice. And then the oak comes back just to let you know that this is a 10-year rye that you're sipping on. And on subsequent sips, the finish itself does get spicier and spicier as those oils build up, really getting into the rye spice, some black pepper, and that clove. And then very similar to the bourbon, at the very tail end of the finish, it does brighten up a little bit, getting more into that sweet tea that we mentioned up front and this lovely vanilla. So quite a few transitions there, but also what a lovely ride. Let's get into these final scores. The same as before, robust scoring system, aggregate scores show us how good this whiskey is. And I am head over heels on this rye, scoring it as a 91 out of 100. So the new Riff Rye takes the title of best score of the year thus far from the new Riff Bourbon in a title run just as short as Drew McIntyre's. Man, this is so lovely. I mean, last year, we mentioned that last year was the year of the rye, and we had a lot of 10, 11-year MGPs that we thought were incredible last year in our top 10. I am wondering if this is actually better than some of those MGP ryes that we adored last year. That's how good this rye whiskey is. So now I have become the ultimate homer, putting 2 new Riff releases as my number 1 and number 2 whiskeys of the year thus far. Of course, this happens the week after I come out with my top 10 list. So can't wait to see what Kelsey and Durrell think of these releases as well. They can balance out whether I'm just being a fanboy and overhyping. Just for now, you know, I am head over heels in love with New Riff. 2025, officially the year of the new Riff for me. If you've gotten to try either of these, let me know what you think in the comments. Give us some of your reviews, some of your flavor notes, your first impressions, and be careful with these on the secondary market. I know I'm giving these very glowing reviews, but I did see a lot of people trying to flip these bottles essentially for the pair for like $500. the hour after they bought them. Don't go that far. New Riff is doing right by the whiskey community, releasing these at $90. Don't go then and overpay somewhere else. And if you miss out on this release, this is essentially the preview of what older New Riff is going to taste like, essentially, for the conceivable future. So hopefully New Riff has a good pipeline of this old whiskey that we can enjoy now year after year. And really now looking forward to getting my hands on a 12-year age statement someday. All right, let's move on to the next segment. Thank you for listening to me, everybody. And if you haven't already and you're still here, click that like and subscribe. And now let's go see what Kelsey's up to. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. Before we move on to the next segment, I want to give a shout out to our friends, Katie and Ethan, over there at the Drifting Drams Coffee Company. Fancy coffee for regular people. Katie and Ethan are going to be giving away a $15 gift card to Drifting Drams Coffee Company. So leave a comment with the hashtag Drifting Drams to enter, and be sure to come back next week and see if you won. And this week's winner is none other than one of our best whiskey friends, Top Dog. If you're not first, you're last, Top Dog. But this week, you are first. So congratulations, and be sure to use that hashtag, Drifting Drams, in the comments. Good luck next week, everybody. Now it's time to catch up with Kelsey over in the Whiskey Riffs Lounge.
Hello again, whiskey friends. It's Kelsey back here in the Whiskey Riff Lounge, and today we're going to go back and revisit. Has whiskey changed? I don't know if you do this in your house, but I always have trouble deciding on what I'm going to pour tonight. As you can see, there's a lot of bottles behind me. So I wanted to do a video on what bottles do I go back to? How long do I wait? Those type of questions. So we're going to get into it. All right. So we're getting into some older bottles. I have two that we're going to taste today. One is the Sam Houston 15-year-old. Now this is an Arkansas batch, which is only 2 barrels. Now most of the batches of these that were released were 3-barrel batches. And then we have its older, 1 year older sister from Calumet Farms. We're doing the 16-year. So these are basically both Barton-sourced bottles, some very older bottles in age. And so we're going to look at some of these and see which ones, as I've gone back to them, has it really changed that much? Is it as good as I remember it being? I always have that conversation after I go back to a bottle. Was this really as good as I think it was? Or did this get worse with air? Did it get better with air? Those are some things that as you create your collection and you go back to bottles a little bit longer time in between. Like I don't think I've drank either one of these probably in over a year. So we're going to revisit these. Let's get into the nose on the 15-year-old first. So we've got some dark color there. Nice copper. So let's get into the nose. So these are some of the basic nosing points. You've got some older oak, some sweet kind of barnyardy hay notes, and then that cherry note, which is typical for me on Barton. I don't get the banana note that a lot of people get on Barton, some of the other distillate that they produce. So these are some of the main nosing notes. Is you get that cherry up front, and then it goes into a little bit of a sweeter hay. And then you get into kind of that barnyardy type of smell with the hay. And then the kind of sweet kind of ends up again with that sweet note towards the end. Let's get into the palate. So on the palate, this is good. This is as good as I remember it being. I'll just say that. So this is vanilla up front. I mean, easy, like velvety mouthfeel. And then it kind of has a short finish to it, a little bit of tannin, oak notes towards the back, but all up front, it was like vanilla. Let's go back for a second sip and see if I get anything else. A little bit of that cherry's coming through, but mostly just vanilla and oak. It is very, very good. I mean, it is rich vanilla. It's not like vanilla extract vanilla. It is like deep, rich, like Madagascar type of vanilla notes that I'm getting off of this thing. And it is as good as I remember it being. Now, this being a 2-barrel batch, I know that this one tasted way different than some of the K1s, which were the Kentucky ones. And then I think I tasted a Louisiana one and one other one. But this one to me was my absolute favorite. So last sip, and let's get a final wrap up on the 15. So final wrap up on this is that it is as good as I remember it being. I do remember it being a little bit more cherry forward when I first tasted it, when I first cracked it, and when I drank it down a little bit. But today, it's just like vanilla and oak, like sweet cake. I don't even know how to describe it. It is just as good as I remember it. All right, so we're on to the 16-year of Calumet. So this one is at 106. The Sam Houston was at 103. So we're looking at a 3-point difference and also a year older. So let's get into the nose. Way different nose on this one. So I'm getting some like sweet fruit, almost like sweet tarts. confectionery type of sugar, a little bit of oak, but not like over oaked at all. Like, I mean, where it just like shines through on the nose. Yeah, just kind of that fruity, powdery sugar. So let's get it on the palate. Let's see what we grab. Yeah. Translating to the palate, same as the nose. Fruity, powdered sugary, a little bit of vanilla, and a little bit of oak. The oak comes in at the very, very, very last of the finish. This one has a little bit longer finish. I kind of like the mouthfeel of the 15 better. This one seems a little bit thinner, not quite as viscous, but it's interesting. It does have a little bit longer finish than the 15. Let's go in for a second sip. Okay. So that one had a little bit more vanilla, similar to the profile of the 15, but I'm still getting way more fruit, and it's not cherry. It's kind of like maybe a raspberry or, I don't know, some sort of type of stone fruit. I can't really think of one specifically. So overall, very different on the profiles, 3 points difference in proof, same distillate, aged a year longer. What's interesting about going back to some of these bottles is I remember the 16 being really good, but I don't remember it being better than the 15, and still the case. The other things that I would encourage you to do, if you've got you're getting a large collection, I would encourage you to take some notes when you first crack it. If you go back to it, second time you have it, and then make a final like last quarter of the bottle type of note and remember it, unless you've just got an eidetic memory and you can remember everything that you drank. Some people can do that. I can't do that. I've taken some notes on some of these bottles, but I can pretty much remember when I drank these and how I like them overall. Drinking them again recalls some of those notes. But to me, the fun part about whiskey is how it can change with air. These have gotten pretty much a little bit more richer with air and gotten a little bit more dense than at first crack. So they have improved with air. So I would just encourage you, as you go back and you revisit some of your bottles, write down in the comments, like what some of the things that you noticed and what bottle was it? How long did it sit between the first time you drank it till the last time you drank it? Or those type of things. We want your interaction. So as you go back, taste some bottles, put them in the comments, make sure you tell me how long it's been, what the air did to it. Did it improve it? I know some of the other bottles that I'm going to do later, that was not the case. Air did not help it. It actually made it less palatable and less than what I remembered it being. So thanks for checking this out, guys. Thanks for hanging around. As always, thanks for all the support for all our patrons, and check out our bottle picks that are coming out soon. And we'll see you guys right back here on Whiskey Wednesday.
Whenever there's a question from the community or a topic you're interested in, we love covering it here. Let's see this week's topic. All right. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video here. This is the last segment, and I just want to talk a little bit about Matt Madness Week 1. Big thank you to Matt Porter for inviting us to this year's challenge. Matt knows that we love blind flights with all of our heart, and getting to compete in Matt Madness is such a lovely treat. Now, Durrell entered round 1 and was able to conquer both Big Vic and Eric the Whiskey Mutant in a crazy, crazy Bacta flight. I, on the other side of the bracket, got to go up against Mr. Sam from Sam's Whiskey Bar. Be sure to check them out if you haven't already. They are a hoot. I can't wait to hang out with Sam more. And also Dutch from Curiosity Public. Been a huge fan of Dutch for years, dating all the way back to the Bourbon Guild, and now so happy that they came back with Curiosity Public. I knew it was going to be a tough challenge, and unfortunately for me, I was battling a cold as well. So I had to pull a little bit of a Jordan flu game on this thing. Luckily, by the end of the night, I did have enough of my taste and smell to make my way through it and pull out the victory. But Matt Madness is an interesting challenge. Not only is it testing your whiskey knowledge and your flavor recall, but also your focus, with Matt cracking jokes, with him pulling on Thrasher, and all the music going on simultaneously. You really got to keep your wits about you. I've actually got a sign still posted on the light behind me here that says things like, reset between pours. Think about the rye spice if it's on the finish. Don't overthink. Stick with your first instincts. Ignore music until your answers are ready. Hedge strategically. And then I wrote down something else, because Matt on the thumbnail said this would be the lowest score in Matt Madness history. I thought maybe that was some type of clue, and I thought he was going to give us a low proof flight. So I even wrote there, low may be a clue to think about. Wow, totally wrong on that one. Not the angle that he was going whatsoever. Instead, what Matt challenged us with was a 1792 drink through, starting with the small batch, then into the single barrel, bottle and bond, all the way to the foolproof. Now, I did not know this, of course, going through the nosing round into the tasting round. I began to get more and more suspicious of it as I got into the foolproof, which Matt gave us in the order of proof. So the foolproof was in glass D. But up to that point, I was leaning Old Forester most of the way. I thought the banana was a bit stronger on what I'm used to with 1792. And very strangely, I don't know what it is about Ohio and Northern Kentucky, but there's not a lot of 1792 floating around here. Pretty much anything other than the small batch is rarely on the shelves around me. So what I decided to do in the bottle guessing round was to hedge my bet between 2 Old Foresters and 2 1792 bottles. I was pretty confident in the 1792 foolproof, but what I entirely forgot about was that there was a 1792 bottle and bond release at all. And I said single barrel, even though I guessed the proof at like 98. Like I knew it was around 100 proof. Maybe if I would have said 100 proof, I would have guessed the bottle and bond. But quite frankly, in my mind, in the moment, especially considering I haven't seen one in years, that bottle was nowhere in my mind. And then for the first 2, I guessed Old Forester single barrels. I actually thought they were 90 proof single barrels potentially, which is a pretty good compliment to the 1792 small batch. But that was the choice I had to make, whether to go all in on one distillery or hedge between 2. I hedged strategically, 2 bottle guesses on each brand. Luckily, nailed one of them. And those points were enough to elevate me over Dutch. So crazy experience, but both Durrell and I are headed into round 2, where Durrell will be going up against Bruzel, and I will get the pleasure of competing with either Gary over at the World's Worst Bourbon channel, Whiskey Mountains, Adriana, potentially a live wire finale rematch. I'm still thinking about that loss. Or Clifton over at Bourbon Bites. Maybe it's Cliffy time. But good luck to everybody competing next week, and I can't wait to see who I will be facing in the next round. So stay tuned. Be sure to follow our journey here. But the ultimate goal on both my mind and Durrell's mind is to meet in the middle. Matt gave us a chance, starting us on opposite ends of the bracket. We're going to take down Shook. We're going to take down Cam, Michael Klein or Brandon, Rare Bird, or even Grease. We're taking you all down, and we're going to have fun doing it. So thank you for joining today, Whiskey Friends. Let me know what you thought of Matt Madness in the comments. What do you think Durrell's and I's chances are of getting out of round 2? And if you haven't already, as we talked about off the top, it is time to get into our Patreon or the private Facebook group. We are going to come out with some killer single barrels here over the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks. The 3 Evernorth drops are going to be epic and legendary. Dan has even been talking about those on recent Bourbon Junkie videos. One of the barrels even being an 18-year light whiskey. Also have a single barrel coming out from Old Dominic that I think might be one of the sleeper ones that we've ever picked. And I can't wait for some tater cakes coming out of Bardstown Bourbon Company. But more and more releases and single barrels coming out the rest of the year. So many opportunities. The distilleries treat us so well, and it is because of your help getting through this journey. So please continue to follow us, do what you can, jump in the community, jump in these groups, and let's just continue to have fun on this glorious ride. And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey friends. So take care of those around you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody. Shout out to our Patreon family. Couldn't do this without you. Please be sure to hit that like and subscribe. And if you're interested in checking out our barrel picks, check out our Patreon and our private Facebook group in the description. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.